they've been doing such a great job reporting this all along, but I know our partners at Channel 15 got it as well. So they got this report. It was a public records request. And this is in opposition to what the Gilbert Police have been saying all along, especially the chief, Michael Solberg, who said that the department, we had no way to link all these different attacks to any one group of people. We didn't know. And at one point he said, none of the victims told us that they were victims of Gilbert Goons.
In the past, he'd said that. Yep.
Yeah, which is kind of like saying, why didn't you tell me that your rapist was a serial rapist? How could we possibly stop him from raping other people if you don't tell us that they're a serial rapist? Like, that's the dumbest thing that you could possibly say, I think, as a police officer, to say that you blamed the victims for not doing your job for you.
So, but now we've got this conversation that seemed to happen between a number of teens in Gilbert. We don't know exactly who was involved in the chat because the names have been redacted. But the newly released police report shows that detectives in January of 2023 got these social media posts from Snapchat in which kids were bragging about assaults and questioning if they would be arrested. They wondered whether or not they could be classified as a gang, all sorts of things that were going on. But the chief still comes out after this and basically says, no, we were thorough, and some of the things that were even brought up in this chat, they weren't even true. Well, hold on. Like, the kids admit in the chat, they're saying that they could get charged with 30-plus assaults.
Yeah.
Why would a kid make up that they could get in more trouble?
One of the social media posts said 5 incidents with brass knuckles. Yeah, they not playing now. Another said, Nana boo boo, you can't catch me. The chat continues with one of the teens raising the issue of gangs. The teen writing, I think we just need to become an official gang already. One teen asked, you got extra knucks? I'm trying to send these kids to hospital. Mm-hmm. First of all, one of the things that drives me nuts about kids these days is their lack of articles. They don't like to use a and the. Let's use some articles in our speech, okay?
No, they don't.
You're
spell
not
out
trying
whole
to
words.
send these kids to hospital. We're not England. It's the hospital here. You got extra knucks. Stop it. This is just poor English. 1, grammar violation. 2, oh yeah, put them in jail.
KNUCKLS.
Knucks, like brass knuckles.
Yeah, and Tryon, TRYIN.
This is what happens when you name your kids Talon and Talon. Spelled differently. Neither one of them spelled like Talon. Those are 2 of the people who were arrested in the murder of Preston Lord. Both named Talon. Neither one of them spelled Talon.
The one that drives me nuts that I really am conscious to with texting is some Gen Zs, the punctuation, they don't.
Horrible.
Like it offends them.
Oh, if you put a period in there.
Text with a period.
Yeah, it's crazy.
So I now am very conscious if I notice somebody not ending their sentences with a period, I try to leave it out on mine.
So imagine that you are a parent and you find out that the police had all of these messages months before your child was assaulted. Imagine if you're Preston Lord's parents today and you just found out that the Gilbert Police had admissions by members of this street gang that they were beating people. And the Gilbert Police chose instead to issue a press release that was so ridiculous. It was something along the lines of, oh, here it is. There was no evidence discovered during the investigation that confirmed any of the claims made in this conversation as being factual. At the time this information was received in 2023, Gilbert PD had 6 total reported cases of group teen violence in our community, with 8 arrests having been made in those cases.
And yet the teens were talking about 30-plus assaults.
Yeah.
And you don't have to imagine being a parent, because Robert and Elena talked with Stephanie Jarnigan. Her son, Connor Jarnigan, was one of the kids who was hit in the back of the head with brass knuckles and went on this movement to try to ban brass knuckles for teens throughout the East Valley. Well, when they spoke with Stephanie Jarnigan, she said that the cops waited months to release this investigative report, while the family first requested it last February. She said the Gilbert Police Chief's claim, Michael Solberg, that the goons were lying in this Snapchat makes no sense. And think about this. She said, her quote is, I find it difficult to believe the goons, would lie to each other in Snapchats. It seemed to me they were bragging. Yes, That makes a little more sense.
The
They're
teens
talking
were.
about 30-plus assaults. But if you're the police chief, you're sitting there saying, we investigated all this. It was much fewer assaults. Or people didn't bring it to our attention.
And yet, when we had some of these teens being assaulted, the police took statements from the parents, and the parents said that this is a trend that we know is happening. The kids in school are talking about it. My son is now the victim, just like others have been. And the police went, oh, that's funny. First we've heard.
They're afraid to come forward with it to the authorities, but they're talking about it. Everybody knows it's going on.
You know, I used the example this morning when I was talking with Mike Broomhead about this, and I said, this is akin to walking into a police station covered in blood with a knife in your hand and saying, I just stabbed my spouse. And the police look around the room and say, we don't see any dead bodies. Nothing to see here. Go ahead and move on. Well, how much more do you need before you start looking for the victims? At what point do you say, we're going to have to step this up? Our investigation is not enough, and we have people who are out here bragging about more. Maybe, here's an idea. Wild, I know. Maybe talk to In-N-Out and see if they have, other than the 6 assaults that you've discussed, if the kids in the Snapchat talk about going to their In-N-Out burger, which they did, which is where we know a number of these assaults have gone on. If they've talked about going to this particular place, maybe, what's that thing they do when they start asking neighbors if they saw it? Oh, I know. Police work! Maybe they do some of that. But instead, there wasn't any. So I'm wondering, is this one of those deals where crap rolls uphill? Is this the chief's fault? Is he covering for detectives who weren't doing that police work? What are we missing here? Because he continues to gaslight us and say, oh no, there was nothing. And yet, we have more reports come out. Oh, look, we tied this together. Oh, look, the reporters in town were able to connect this together as a gang. The police had actual text messages saying, quote, I think we just need to become an official gang already. And yet, the police weren't able to connect those things. And instead of saying, look, we're investigating, it's an ongoing investigation, instead what they do is they say, we didn't know. Are you incompetent or are you lying? Or are you both?
I would love to know what names were redacted, too.
Yeah, how many of those have been arrested in other circumstances?
Well, but how? Not just that. My hunch is that these kids were probably at least using their real first names. And if you have the entire discussion, to your point, Chris, doing some police work when you already have a big conversation with the teens.
That's funny. They had the names in front of them. That's a good point.
They had something in front of them from all of these people. They had locations, they had names to some degree, and they had admissions
that these things happened. What more do you... Dear In-N-Out, do you have any footage? Is there anyone in the area that has any security cameras that might be able to show if there were assaults that went on at this time, whether they've been reported or not?
But instead, they want to sit there and say, these kids were making it all up.
Thanks for watching The Chris and Joe Show. Click to see more from Chris and Joe and tap the button in the middle to subscribe to KTAR News.